Hey animal lovers, Alex Deo here from Furthest from the Wild. Today we have a really cool video podcast. It's Tiger Talk with Carney Anne Nasser. She invited us on her audio podcast and we talk a lot about different animal rights issues. So if you're an animal lover, please enjoy, check it out, get educated, and don't forget, subscribe, hit the notification button because this month we're having this really cool contest. Check it out. It's a Jaguar hat. So subscribe and you might be the winner.
All right, how are you guys doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. What have you guys been up to since we saw each other at Lions, Tigers, and Bears?
Let's see. Well, we've been trying to put that together, editing the short film that we're working on right now. At the same time, we're still working on the Furthest from the Wild TV series, where we just documented some New Guinea singing dogs that were very interesting.
Wow, I don't know anything about those guys at all.
We didn't know much either, and we actually didn't realize that they're actually being bred in the U.S. So, out of all the animals, you would think, we thought, we ended up learning that they were, people thought they were extinct up until like in the early 2000s or something like that. And somebody found them out in the wild, I believe. And I guess they started bringing them here to the U.S. to start breeding them. And
great.
So we heard about a rescue and we went out and documented it. And so now we're trying to learn more about what's going on with that species here in the U.S. Yeah.
A couple of years ago, I feel like there started being rumblings about using woolly mammoth DNA to like bring back the woolly mammoth. And I'm like, that's like the last thing we need.
Right.
Exactly. Like, is to then recreate or bring back an extinct species so that we can breed it in captivity, bring people to look at it, exploit it, and open up a whole new can of worms for yet another exotic animal species. So
talk about Jurassic Park, huh?
Right. Totally. Totally.
Yeah, it's all about the money, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So how many places have you guys been to now with for Furthest in the Wild? Like how many different sanctuaries and different roadside zoos and different facilities do you think? I mean, you've been all over the place.
Yeah, I mean we've been around. We've been lately we've been trying to just focus on the good sanctuaries that are doing good so that we can highlight them and document some of the good stuff that they're doing. But we have seen some of those sanctuaries or roadside zoos that you're talking about, and it's unfortunate that they're still going on. And it's not even roadside zoos anymore. It's your accredited zoos that are doing the bad stuff now too as well. So it's kind of unfortunate, but I mean, we've been all around, all the way up to the East Coast to the West Coast. I think the last one that we did was in Florida, and that one was about capuchin monkeys. So a guy owned a couple capuchin monkeys and decided after 27 years he's gonna surrender them to a sanctuary.
We talked about this last year, huh?
Yeah, we did. So, which is good because this is something that I would like to eventually use this as a, to help pass like the Primate Public Safety Act.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Because I'm sure that's probably going to be the next thing to follow after the Big Cat Public Safety Act. And I know.
Yeah, and I think that people have some familiarity with the Big Cat Public Safety Act at this point, banning the private ownership of big cats and prohibiting exhibitors from offering the public contact that incentivizes this puppy mill style breeding of big cats that end up supplying the private owners.
Right.
But what would the Primate Public Safety Act accomplish?
I think it's pretty much for the same. I think it would stop people breeding them, especially so what happens is when they breed, it's almost the same thing with the tigers. They breed them and they take them out. They take them from their mother. It's too soon before they're able to actually be on their own. And we show that in one of our episodes. So I think what it will stop, it was to have people owning them privately in homes as well, and then stop the need of having to use them in entertainment. We're still seeing it till today. It's 2021. I just read an article, I believe in the Guardian, the Offspring, the punk band just used chimpanzees for their music video, which is
Oh, great.
unfortunate because I really love that band. It was like I
Yeah.
grew up with them. I love that punk, music.
I went to see
And
them
then I
in
hear this.
concert when I was in college in San Diego. I went to an Offspring concert
So
on
did I.
Easter.
Yes, Sam and I saw them multiple times. I mean, I think we'd drive out to Bakersfield at one point just to go see them.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate, like these guys, they've been around for a while. They haven't been, doing anything lately, but then they come out with this. It's just like, it's so unfortunate. I'm like, where have you guys been living?
Right.
If you not noticed that a lot of the Hollywood films now are not even using animals anymore, real animals.
Right.
It's turned into CG. And I think that's part of what the Primate Public Safety Act will do, is that we need to stop using them in entertainment purposes. These little using them as in rodeos, as rodeo clowns, which is it's horrible. Other than the fact that rodeos are, such a barbarian sport as well to begin with, that needs to go away. So I think all of this would teach us that start opening our eyes that these animals are not here for our entertainment purposes. We need to protect them. We need to speak out for them, and that's why Sam and I are here for. That's why you're here for as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I'm curious, because you mentioned CGI, and for the two of you as filmmakers, I mean, does that something that's exciting to you to see that? Because that seems like that is a creative endeavor that can add to the industry in a really cool way. Absolutely. Rather than like such a like archaic throwback to like dressing up animals in costumes. Like, so what are your thoughts on that? And what do you think the broader industry feeling that you've noticed is about this evolution into CGI?
I think the companies are definitely looking into, if there's animals involved in the film, they're probably thinking about it twice now if they're actually using an animal, because of all the backlash that people can, that they'll get, especially now with animal rights activists being a little bit more aware because of social media and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think they're doing more of an effort now to start using CG. I know it probably costs 1,000,000 times more money, but it's more ethical and it's the right thing to do. I mean, you can do so much with this CGI. I mean, look at all the Planet of the Apes movies. Amazing.
Yeah,
film.
So impressive.
Amazing. If they would have probably used real chimps, I probably would have not watched the film.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and people need to learn that when these animals are being used for entertainment, it's abuse. It's not that that these animals are having fun. It's torture for them.
And when I tell people is like, especially when you're talking about exotic animals, the abuse happens before they ever get to the set. It happens in training. It happens behind the scenes. We saw that with Ty the elephant who was used in Water for Elephants. Video surfaced after the fact of her being electric shocked, of being, viciously beaten during training. So it's the greatest concern is during training when there are no monitoring eyes on them. There are no people monitoring training. So it's definitely a concern. Sam, what are your thoughts about like this evolution into CGI?
I think it's fantastic. Alex and I, obviously we're, animals have always been a big, big deal with us growing up. And so, as filmmakers, and in branching out to do narrative and we would have always anticipated possibly using animals as characters in future films, but the dilemma of using an animal as a real actor in a film, that's where we're at that crossroads where, well, we don't have to think about it anymore because now CGI has bridged that gap. It looks fantastic. You can for the biggest sticklers, okay, maybe there's a little thing that you can say, okay, it doesn't look 100% real, but it's so close. It's absolutely so close. There's really, if it's a budget reasons, I can't imagine, morally, you just got to go with CGI.
Well, and I would imagine that like everything over time, there is going to be, it's not going to be as cost prohibitive. Like with everything, as the technology becomes more broadly, it would be as more people become proficient in it, and as technology evolves, and I would imagine that cost would eventually like come down.
Yeah.
But
yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
yeah,
it's the main reason why it's being used more and more.
Yeah.
You know, in every film, you know, you
Yeah.
see films where, you know, they're introducing CGI when you can in your mind you're thinking, well, you didn't have to shoot that in CGI. You could have just gone outside and shot that, you know, scene. But they're doing that because sometimes it's just more cost effective that way than, you know.
Right. Oh, that's a great point. That's awesome.
You know, so it's happening.
There's
happening.
Yeah, there's really no excuses.
Right.
So did you guys, I'm curious, did you guys, like, what came first? Your interest in filmmaking and pursuing that as a career, or your interest in speaking up for animals? Like, how did you evolve to get to the point where you were utilizing your creative talents to create documentary films and raise awareness about the exploitation of exotic animals and tell their stories?
Well, I think it might what started with me probably just I worked in post production starting, you know, probably like around 2000 was when I graduated audio video post production school. So I started learning all of that, and at the same time, while I was at work, I was also very fascinated with some of the stuff that was going on in the animal world. I was always an animal lover. But spending so much time in the room watching movies all day and working in post, and then, you know, going on the news and seeing all this stuff that was going on, I think it was around the mad cow disease time that I started reading more and more about the farming, the factory farming, and started opening my eyes. I started, you know, stop eating meat, and I started realizing more of the animal rights issues that are going on. I was really more into, you know, just narrative films. Sam and I were doing little short dark comedies was kind of our thing. Writing that sort of things, going out with, you know, friends, filming, you know, mostly all narratives. Never really thought about the whole documentary world. And then one day I actually ended up wanting to sign up to the Sea Shepherd. I wanted to go out, and I was like, you know, I have my post-production skills and my camera skills. I want to go out and see maybe I can do my part and help. You know, of course, when you have to do that, it takes about, you know, you're out there for about a year. So it's not like, you know, a month or two. So my wife was like, why don't you start something here locally and see if we can, you know, move on up. So she actually introduced me to the Sanctuary, which is the wildlife way station here in California. It was a sanctuary that was shut down. And she's like, you can go out there and volunteer if you like. I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Let me go. So I went, and I saw that there was all these exotic animals literally in my backyard. I mean, just 20 minutes away from where I was living, you know, tigers, bears, all these animals. And then they start talking to me and telling me about that, well, these come from circuses, these come from an illegal drug dealer, this comes from blah blah blah, this and so forth. And I started opening my eyes, and I was like, wow, I was like, I didn't even know this was even going on. So I left that day thinking to myself, okay, so there's a little bit more that I could do than just come here and just help volunteer, as far as, you know, picking up poop for the day and sweeping up here and there. It's like, I don't know how much help I'm doing. Yeah, I'm sure I'm probably helping the sanctuary a lot, but in the long run, I don't know how much I'm actually doing. So I decided, you know what? Let me put all of my savings, all my money into it. I'm going to make a documentary so that we can tell the world that sanctuaries out there exist. This is what's going on. And the reason why they exist is because of all these animals that are being traded, that are being traded, you know, and this includes zoos as well, not just you know, private ownerships. So I went into the deep hole of the internet and started just digging more and more and more. And I started talking to Sam more. And then, you know, Sam's been very supportive on the cause and jumped in. And we one day just grabbed all my money and savings, and we're like, all right, let's go for a month. Let's just go for a month. Let's take, at the time, Sam's fiance, I guess, a girlfriend. I don't know if I guess they weren't married yet. This was a little over 10 years ago. Now they're married, have two beautiful kids. But it was most of us were not necessarily professionals. I mean, yeah, I did work in post production. I never had actually shot a full feature documentary or anything like that. So, like, let's just go. Let's just contact these sanctuaries. Let's find
Yeah.
out what's going on in the world. So we went pretty much from California. I think it led us all the way to Florida. We just
Texas,
went
New
out for a
Mexico,
month.
Arizona, Oklahoma.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So we just went out. We're just contacting sanctuary by sanctuary and filming, documenting their story.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we started. I mean, it just started trickling into more and more and more stuff. And then we figured, you know what, it's a never-ending story. We need to continue with it. They have so many stories to tell every single day, and there's so many calls that they're having for having to rescue certain animals and different species. And especially right now, the hot thing is tigers, because we have so many of them here in the U.S. And
Yeah.
that's a constant phone call that they're getting. We need a tiger
Yes.
to be rescued. I mean, I don't need to tell you, you're the tiger expert, but
Well,
that's kind of how it kind of started. So we decided, at least for me, I decided to focus more on dedicating my life to kind of document more of the animal rights issues, and kind of stepped away from the whole narrative, as much as I still would like to do some narrative, but it just the whole animal.
There's a reason.
There's a yeah.
To continue.
It felt it felt like it had to, like we have to. It's a necessity. It's,
I mean, to me, this issue kind of found me as well, because I'd wanted to work in animal advocacy. I was sure of that, but I wasn't really sure where I would be best suited. And I remember my first animal law job that I applied for was focused on promoting plant-based diets and alternatives to animal testing. And I remember I was so sad that I didn't get that job. I remember I was pregnant and emotional, and I was sitting in the parking lot of my doctor's office, just sobbing because I'd gotten this rejection call. And thank goodness, because I would have completely missed this whole, and if I hadn't found that path as good of a match, who knows if I would have even stayed in animal protection work, if I maybe would have thought, oh, this maybe isn't the right fit at all for me. So yeah, it's interesting how the issue has found all of us. Sam, is that pretty much, did Alex give a complete wrap on all that?
That's essentially it. Honestly, the whole, I remember actually the moment where it was more like we're doing it was we were sitting in a cafe in Santa Cruz. We had just did we win an award or something? I don't know. We were there in some Santa Cruz Film Festival for the dark comedy that we shot, and so we were there having a coffee, or it was late, and so Alex is just this could be our next project, not knowing that this is our next project for the next 10, 11 years.
Right.
It just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah.
But and I think the film itself is kind of indicative of what our experience was filming it, because even the conversations, the way in which it's shot and everything is essentially just kind of revealing it as we're experiencing it as well, because we're not we're not experts. We're not trying to show you snippets or specific moments. We're actually just kind of like, okay, this is what we got because this is all we know. This is what we can ask because this is all we know to ask. So we came in fresh, and I think we did a good job. I think we kind of painted a picture of what we, as a outsider coming in, for the first time, learning what a sanctuary was. And so, from that point on, we kind of wanted to evolve it into, we can show people what's going on day to day, but I think it'd be nice to show, why it's being done, and the why is the animals that need the rescue. And so let's we decided to go towards in that route with the series and say, let's focus on these rescues, specifically these moments can paint that picture of like, it's a teachable moment for people. I think, a lot of the like the stories that we're learning and we're finding out are they're not like these extravagant, crazy, weird, messed up stories necessarily. Not all of them, at least, but a lot of them are just, people who had, like Alex mentioned, the monkeys. He had them for 27 years. No one would have known. He had them he had pets that were part of his family for so long, and then life happened, and now he says, well, I can't have them anymore. But it's the animals that are going to have to go, not him, right? So that's that was our job there, was to show that it can happen to everyone. And in a situation like that, it's an animal that's not going to have a life anywhere other than in a sanctuary or in the home that they grew up in. So either they're there or they're not. And we hope that they are somewhere, as opposed to being euthanized like so many other animals do.
Right. Yeah, so, that's true.
The story goes.
So I yesterday I was talking to my husband, and he had such a cynical viewpoint. He was like, oh, you're never going to end the problem entirely. Like, these exotic animal pets, like tigers, even we were just talking about tigers, you're never going to end the problem. And I'm like the forever optimist. I'm like, right. If you make it illegal to have public contact, you are removing this cash cow for the roadside zoos and the unscrupulous breeder dealers. And then these animals become just these giant, dangerous financial liabilities. Yeah. And you're drying up the supply that feeds the exotic pet market for these animals that ultimately end up in people's homes. So I'm like, I do believe we can bring this, like, I believe that we can curtail this problem. Are you guys with me, or?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, a perfect example is like it shows like in the Tiger King. What was he doing? He was getting rid of tigers so he can bring in more, so that he can make more money off of the photo op petting of the tigers. So like you said, you make it illegal, he can't go out and purchase more. So he's stuck with those. They're stuck with those tigers until they die. They don't necessarily have to kill 20 tigers to bring in another 20 cubs. Yeah. So, I think, yes, I think you make it illegal. I think it's going to make it harder for this to continue on. And we started here in the US, and let us start trickling down to the rest of the world, because it's a problem. It's a big, huge problem in the rest of the world. And I'm still hearing people going to different resorts and stuff and paying to do this. And how are
swim with dolphins? We haven't even touched on that, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
That's super popular other parts of the world.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think you make it illegal, I think it's going to make it harder. I'm not saying it's going to go away completely, but we'll probably see less of it.
Significantly. I mean, I think we get to a day where we don't have 3 tigers confiscated from suburban Texas neighborhoods in the span of 3 months.
Exactly.
Like, I do believe we can get to that point. Maybe I am overly optimistic, but I do think that once we can curtail the public contact, whether it's with the baby monkeys or whether it's with big cats are so much, when they get big, are a lot harder to hide, I guess, than a monkey. So, and a lot harder to take care of in a lot of cases. So I think we've seen so much progress. I mean, we last met, Alex, a year ago, talking about this issue. And since then, every single roadside zoo or roadside zoo owner depicted in Tiger King is either in prison, indicted for wildlife trafficking or animal cruelty, under investigation, subjected to hundreds of thousands of dollars of penalties that have put them out of business. Just this week, Jeff Lowe had 68 big cats confiscated by the feds. That's 100% of the rest of his inventory of big cats. So
that's amazing.
All of them but one, Mario down in Florida. They're all like, I mean, the dominoes are falling. So
and that's good. I'm happy to finally see that they're actually doing something. The thing is that they need to implement these laws so that it can make it, punish these people and to a higher degree.
For sure.
You know, and
Um,
that's the problem why the whole animal trade is such one of the fourth largest illicit profit in the world, is because you barely get a slap in the hand when you get caught, as opposed to when
it's
you
true.
know you get caught with a kilo of cocaine, you're gonna go to prison probably close to the rest of your life,
Yeah.
20 plus 30 40 years.
Yeah.
But why not do
Smuggle
why
some sea turtle eggs or something. It's like, hey, here's a
it,
fine.
Right.
yeah,
Sorry about
endangered
that.
yeah, exactly, yeah, or bringing in exotic birds, you know, and tucked into your sweater in the airport, and like
Yeah.
how is that not punishable?
Yeah. Well, and it's rarely, if I've noticed, you know, I mean, just anecdotally, it's really hard for me to think of a wildlife trafficking or wildlife crimes case that doesn't also involve some other type of criminal activity. I mean, just this last week, the special investigator with Fish and Wildlife Service who had investigated Joe Exotic's case was involved in an investigation of a guy who had illegal bald eagle parts and was also convicted. So he was convicted of wildlife crimes and he's waiting his sentencing on that, but also of sex trafficking and like sex crimes with minors. And so it just like, I, you know, what I tell people all the time is like, it's really hard for me to think of somebody who's involved in wildlife trafficking who's not also involved in something other horrible, frequent exploitation involving people. So
Crime begets crime.
Right.
Regardless, you know, whether it's towards animals or drugs or weapons, it's all part of the same business.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so it's just, we need to, I think that if people aren't as, even if there are people who aren't as concerned about the animal crimes, you need to understand that when you're addressing the animal crimes, you're actually helping prevent a lot of other bad stuff too.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah, because the smugglers who are smuggling in the animals, you know, they have ways and means to smuggle, you know, other things in, and so it's not just the parrot or the sea turtle or anything like that. It's the you know, it's the drugs as well. It's the weapons, you know, all those things that you know make the world a little less safe. But going back on your point, Carney, is that the pessimist in me, it agrees with your husband. It tells me that this is you know, there will never be 100%. You know, something tells me like, you know, there's always going to be someone, but the you know, the optimist in me, it tells me, well, no, you know what, we're making strides. Things can get better, and in this situation, with the Safety Act, you know, sometimes it needs to be pushed along a little bit differently than education. I know we teach young children, and education is key in every respect. But you know, there's those people that are already you know, have their thoughts engraved and say, well, animals are for my pleasure. What I do what I want with them when I want. And you know, those are the people that need these laws to be enforced against. You know, the kids are the ones, you know, they're the curious ones. They're the ones that want a pet, of course. They don't realize what it means. But the adults are the ones that should be a little bit more educated and realize, no, a baby tiger is not the right pet. You know, that's not the right way to go. So, yeah, it's twofold. Good.
Yeah, no, it's true. I you know, I don't think that it'll be like you said, 100% you know, that's what we're working towards, and we'll probably always be working towards that 100%. But the harder we make it for people to get these animals and to hide them and to, you know, keep them, then hopefully it will price most people out of even being able to acquire them. Because when it's harder to get them, it's going to be a lot more expensive. You're not going to be able to get a tiger for free anymore, like you can now. So,
you know, Carney, I wanted to ask you a question. What do you I'm sure you've heard of these. There's a lab or group of scientists that are creating rhino, or I guess it's essentially a synthesized rhino horn. It's not a real rhino horn, but they're trying to flood the market with it to try to basically bring the price down of rhino horns like to basically zero. So that way it's, you know, not lucrative anymore. Have you heard of that?
I have heard a little bit of something about that. And I have mixed feelings because I think when you create it, it's kind of like faux fur, right? Like you're still promoting the aesthetic. And so it's still on some level, I mean, obviously it's better to have something that does not involve animal cruelty or poaching of a protected species, slaughtering protected species, but or any species. But I also think I don't know that it'll have the intended consequence of reducing demand so much. We're seeing that the tiger bone trade is being supplemented by lion bones, and that lion bones are easily passed off as tiger parts. Right. And so that's kind of, those parts are flooding the market. To me, it's a bit of a gray area that I'm not thoroughly convinced that it's the right solution. I feel like that we need to really ramp up the penalties for people who are caught with or participants in any type of whether it's poaching or whether it's like illegal trade or possession of any types of parts. Right.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit about, I think there's a farmer out in Africa who's farming the rhino horn and selling it legally so that the rhinos are not being killed.
Right.
But then it goes to what you say, it's still kind of promoting that.
And then how do you know that your rhino horn's been ethically sourced? You know what I mean? Like, won't that create a market for people to pass off poached rhino horn, whatever?
I think the person's going to buy a rhino doesn't probably even really give a crap to begin with.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's probably one of the questions they're probably going to be even asking, is this rhino poached ethically?
Yeah.
If you're buying
I just think we have to stop feeling entitled, stop this entitlement mentality to having close contact, to feeling like these animals are just here to fulfill whatever whim we have, whatever purpose we see that we want them to fill for us. Like, whenever I got asked the question, like, well, how else are, my kids going to ever be able to get up close to a tiger? Like, my response is, I don't feel like my kids are entitled to ever experience that. Like, some things we're not, just because an animal exists doesn't mean we're entitled to everything, to just go into nature and do whatever we want, whenever we want, in whatever proximity, with these animals. Like, I just don't see that. I don't buy into that entitlement mentality.
Right. No, I agree.
It's a very egotistical, frame of mind.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And then it's one thing that Sam and I haven't even discussed. It's like, well, okay, people, say, well, how am I going to educate my kids if I can't go and see them? Like, well, there's so many different ways. And there's a lot of different ways that even zoos can switch over to by doing, so much technology that we have nowadays by, these kids can walk into a room, 360 virtual reality, and then let's put them in a jungle. Let's put them in a safari. Let's put all those smells inside that room. How much more education they're going to get there? I mean, I feel like they'll see they'll be educated a lot more and actually seeing what the animals are actually doing in the wild, as opposed to seeing that elephant just turn into circles and bobbing his head up and down because it's depressed and it's been sitting, it's been living there and for the last 18, 20 years.
Yeah. Okay, I agree. There's nothing.
Keep that thought in mind, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to create a virtual reality education center where you come in, you're going to live an experience like that. So copyright, trademark.
I want in on this because no joke. Yesterday I was on my run, and I literally, the whole time I was running, I was thinking about the role of technology in animal education going forward, because we're in this rapidly evolving time of cryptocurrency and AI and VR, and the world is moving so fast. Like, I don't know, is it even going to be 10 years before having a steering wheel in our car is irrelevant? So like, I totally believe, like, let's, the future of a traditional zoo, I think, is going to fall by the wayside.
Virtual zoos. That's the way to
I agree.
Zoo.
A virtual zoo, and you can have it anywhere. Imagine you can have a virtual zoo in downtown LA, where you walk in, it's almost like a museum, but you walk in and you're in the jungle, you're out in South America, you're in India, you're in Africa.
You can hear it.
You can smell it. Imagine having all these amazing sound engineers bringing all that sound to you, all these amazing cinematographers going around the world, documenting all these backgrounds, documenting all the animals like Planet Earth and these BBC brilliant people, putting that into a virtual zoo. I would be there all the time, and then change it up. You can change it up. You don't have to trade animals. Today's special is orangutans in Borneo. Tomorrow we're doing elephants in the safari. I mean,
oh my gosh,
it never ends. It's never ends.
Let's get started.
Okay, you know what we need to do? We need to create NFTs.
Yes.
That come with a virtual experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what it is.
Here's your tiger NFT.
Yeah.
And it comes with, maybe one of your rescue missions that's documented. And then,
perfect.
Like, I don't know, guys. I think we're onto something here.
I agree. I mean,
we might not want to share this part of the discussion.
Probably not. We can cut this. But Sam and I have been talking about this for years. I mean, we've been discussing something like this. I mean, it just takes a little bit of capital, but it's nothing that far out.
Imagine that. This is something that museums can incorporate as well. You don't need much space. You don't need, the world of zoos need, they need massive spaces, even though the animals only get tiny spaces, but yet humans get these long corridors to walk through all, big tramways and all of this stuff, huge areas where you can binge on, soda and popcorn, but tiny little spaces for the attractions, right? The animals there. So we don't, that's it. That's going back to that thought of, well, what I want to experience the real thing. You're not experiencing the real thing. No. You're experiencing it's like saying, let me go see what a human does. And you go to their office building, and while they're clicking away in their office, like, is that what a human is?
Or a prison.
That's not what a human does. Or a prison. Right. There you go. Thank you. Working in an office is sometimes just,
Amen.
But, it's a similar thought. You're not getting a reality. You're just getting some, fake misinterpretation with a little placard that says, hey, look, we're educating you.
I tell people all the time, like, there's nothing educational about taking your kids to see animals in environments that don't even provide them with the ability to engage in their most basic normal behaviors. Like, what's educational about that? Right. You referenced, Alex, the elephants, like, just kind of walking around in circles, or whether it's, heads swaying, and what we see is like all these facilities, including, what zoos saying, oh, they're dancing, like, it's, they're dancing to music. Like, no, that's these behaviors are born from years of suffering psychologically in these cramped spaces.
Perfect examples are Billy the elephant. I think it's Billy the elephant here at the LA Zoo. That's been they've been trying to put him in a sanctuary, I think up in Paws in Northern California, which said they've taken him. I've even been out to court in some of the sessions of them trying to release him. I mean, I think it's been a fighting battle for years, but and I think the reason why they're not doing it is because they're selling his sperm to other zoos.
Yeah, it's problematic. The elephant situation is super problematic because, and this is why we've seen zoos buy elephants from. We had the whole import of elephants by 3 different accredited zoos from Africa, and because the elephants are dying in captivity faster than they're being born, because elephants don't naturally. They're under so much stress. It's very difficult for them to breed in captivity. It's usually unsuccessful. So yeah, there's this, you know, a lot of artificial insemination. Now we're seeing zoos purchasing animals from the wild to maintain that genetic diversity and to also supplement their dying population.
Yeah.
And we're just warehousing them. We're not repopulating the wild. We're just warehousing them for human entertainment. So
that's exactly it. And then, you know, people say, well, you know, it's conservation. They're breeding them so that we can have them here and they won't go extinct. But that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the elephant. How about we breed them and we try to put them out in the wild? How about we start doing those programs?
How about we focus it out there? Yeah. You know, giving that the backing it needs is to continue purchasing land or fighting to make more reservations in the areas that need it. You know, start blocking.
That's what our virtual zoo can support.
Yeah, absolutely.
Real conservation.
Right. Real conservation.
Real conservation.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's the sky's the limit nowadays with technology, and that's the beauty of it. And it's not fair. You know, it's not fair that we have so much at our hands and we still go back to this archaic, place.
Well, and this is why I'm so excited to see so many creative minds and talented filmmakers like yourselves involved in the animal protection world now, because I think that the movement was so entrenched in business as usual mentality. Animal protection movement is not a entrepreneurial, innovative space. And we really are desperate for more creative minds, people who are on the forefront of emerging technologies, because that's where we're going to solve these problems. We're not going to rescue our way out of this problem. We're not going to I don't even think we're going to legislate our way out of this problem. We're going to need to actually evolve and innovate out of this problem.
Right. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's going to have to take us creatives, us that are in the forefront, to change people's minds, because I don't think politicians are going to do anything for us. I mean, we just spoke last week about how I think Idaho just put out, I think they made it legal now to kill 90% of the wolf population. I mean, this is coming straight from the government. I'm like, how is this how is this possible? How is this still happening? 90% of the wolves, I believe there's 1,500 wolves, I think, in Idaho right now. 90%. I mean, do the math, people. Think about that. How many wolves are going to be left in Idaho, in the whole state? It boggles my mind. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. And I don't understand why. And I remember texting you and asking, well, what can we do? Is there somebody?
I know, buy all the hunting licenses. I don't know.
I actually went out and calculated it. Since I'm not an Idaho, resident, it costs a lot more. I mean, I had to come up with thousands of dollars, but who knows? The thing is that I think they put them out to pre-sale in December of the previous year. I think they go like that. They go fast. And I was even looking at what it costs to kill some of these, to hunt these, like the bears. It's like, you're talking about a few $100.
It's
really,
it's gross.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's unfortunate.
But I mean, there's definitely been some good developments in the last year. So not to,
sour things.
Not to, say, I think that,
I think people are heading in the right direction.
I think
we've reached this really, really steep, point. And I think we're starting to take a look at ourselves and realize that we're not the impermanence of everything, and how little we have, and how much we have to hold on to it as much as we can before it's gone.
So what's next for you guys? Where are you right now with Furthest from the Wild, and what's where can people kind of see what you're up to and stay up to date on any updates and see some of your awesome content?
Virtual
right now you got
that's our next project. Just kidding.
No, we can, right now you can visit the website. You can get all our information, subscribe to our newsletter, and we'll be updating you. We're doing a collection of rescues right now. It hasn't been released out to the public yet, but our goal is we're trying to do about 5 to 6 episodes. We got 4 already so far. And then our goal is to find a home for them, somebody that will actually want to continue filming more of these rescues for us.
The idea as
right.
well.
Exactly.
For sure.
And get it out in the, to air so that people can see it. So that's kind of what we're working on right now. We're in negotiations, I guess you would say.
Yeah. Cool. So I know that when we talked last year and I asked you about, if you had like one particular rescue that's like been like sort of stuck in your mind, and you told me about the monkey case.
Yeah.
Is there anything that's happened in the last year that's been really impactful for both of you? Like,
let's see, in the last year.
There's the monkey case still.
Yeah, I think
sticking with you.
It's definitely a good one. I think, we just, like I mentioned earlier, we did the New Guinea singing dogs. So that was a whole new experience, because I would have never had thought that I would go out and film a rescue for New Guinea singing dogs. I mean, I would expect something like a primate or a big cat, your usual.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. And I started learning. Sam and I started reading more up on it. Sam started talking to me about, hey, did you know that these were thought to be extinct until, the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So
is that a Lazarus? Do they call that a Lazarus species? A species that's like presumed extinct, and then they like discover. I think there's a name for that.
I don't know the name, but that sounds right.
Yeah.
They were essentially missing, and then all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, that still exists. Holy moly! It's been years.
So we're contacting a specialist, as I've been doing some studies on them. So I'm interested to hear more about that species, just because it's not a common species that people hear about every day. So I think that's going to be very unique to the show.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. And of course,
how about you, Sam? What?
They're not dogs that you want to have at home. As cute and pretty as those animals are. They're not pets, and they're not meant to be pets. They are wild animals that deserve to be where they are in their homes, not the ones that were rescued. Of course, they deserve to be in the wild. But I agree. I mean, I that honestly, 2020 was 2020.
Right.
Just leave it like that. So essentially, our production was pretty mellow. All of 2020, but it was mostly background stuff, getting the contracts and the paperwork, and getting all that stuff done. But yeah, it was a nice change of pace to finally go out and film something and go through the process. It's never linear. There's never anything that just goes so smoothly that you're just like, oh, that was how are we gonna make this into a story? No, it always just ends up being a story, because life happens throughout in the process. And so luckily for us, that's what we're doing. We're just documenting it. We're just putting a camera up to it and saying, well, this is what happened throughout that time. And so as cute as these dogs are, they're not ferocious and scary and can't bite your head off or anything like that. Maybe they can nip you a little bit and it might hurt for a few minutes, but it, it's not about that. Not the series has never been about how scary or how much drama we can pack into one episode. Absolutely not. Even as much as some TV series try to push that, ours is not. We see, you see so much reality TV. Ours is not reality TV. It's just reality.
Yeah.
We're not making a. Yes, it'll hopefully we'll air it and get it all going through that, but. We're not producing it. It's just happening, and we're there we're happy and lucky to be having the cameras and showing the world these stories, these moments that would otherwise go unnoticed.
Yeah. No, thank goodness you are. I'm headed to Winnemucca, Nevada, the week after next, there's a roadside zoo from Oregon that essentially got kicked out of Oregon that's trying to set up shop in Nevada. And so I got a phone call from our friends at the GFAS accredited sanctuary in Nevada. And I'm going to go try to help them out with that situation and giving some testimony to the county about why they should not issue a conditional use permit for this particular roadside zoo. So,
Good.
And I know that Nevada is like finally, like after all these years of being one of the last 4 states standing with no exotic animal regulations, oversight, or limitations on the state level, they're finally toying with it. And I think that this facility wants to kind of sneak in and get in time to be grandfathered in if the new law passes. And yeah, it's a facility that's done business with Joe Exotic. And so they've got over a dozen big cats and a number of primates and other species. And so yeah, so that's my sort of next adventure.
Good. Well, if you need Furthest from the Wild there, we can help you out.
You guys are welcome to come up if you want to, if that would be helpful to your, helpful to your narrative of, like just getting some of the like kind of what's happening and how these places come to be. And
absolutely.
So,
definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll give you the details.
Didn't we talked about, I think years ago, I think wasn't one of the musicians trying to put back his show down in Nevada?
So Dirk Arthur, the magician, for a period of time, and he had in the movie The Conservation Game, there's a discussion about snow leopards that, protected snow leopards and where they end up, and a magician receiving a snow leopard from a breeding facility in Kansas, and that was Dirk Arthur. To my knowledge, he's not gained a foothold again.
Good.
I think that a lot of his animals have been sent elsewhere at this point, but I'm not entirely sure where they ended up.
Okay.
Or if he's kept some, but I don't believe that he's. I don't believe that he has had any more. I mean, certainly not in the last year.
Right.
But yeah, to my knowledge, it's not.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. So.
I mean, every little piece, every little moment like these are little victories that we have to celebrate.
Yeah. I told you guys. Did I tell you, Alex, that when I went to go, I went to a Dirk Arthur show to see. How the big cats were used. Yeah. And he pulled me up on stage.
No way.
For one of his, he selected me from the audience for one of his. It was so weird and it was so bizarre because I'd actually just sent a letter to his management company about the USDA violations and all that stuff, illegal declawing and all of these things. And yeah, so it was very bizarre to go up, and it wasn't a trick using a cat. Thankfully, it was just like a card trick. But I was like, oh my god, this is like,
right? What
are the chances? That being said, the chances were actually pretty good because at this point, his audience had dwindled to I think I counted 30 people at this particular show. So, I mean, he was just kind of circling the drain at that point, I think. But yeah,
I got free tickets when you spin that wheel outside or the Tropicana or whatever it was at the time. And I did get free tickets to go see him. This was almost 20 years ago.
Wow.
And I will say, even then, before Furthest from the Wild, before even really diving into this world that we're more in now, having those cats did not add any meaningful value to the experience. I love magic. I love
magic. Me too.
But
David Blaine's street magic, definitely.
Excellent.
But
excellent.
Yeah.
Having big cats or animals in your show does not increase any value, in my opinion. If you can produce a show that makes you have a experience. Penn and Teller, I don't think uses any animals from what I have.
They are, however, huge supporters of like circuses, and they're very friendly to exotic animal ownership. So
I see. Well,
yeah,
I will. Well, now I know. But I will say, in my experience, I did go see them. They did have an animal on stage.
Yeah.
And at least in my opinion, it, like I said, it didn't add any meaningful value to the experience as a person being there and seeing any animal running through the stage or being on the stage. You're so far away, it doesn't really matter anyways. It can be a fake animal, it can be a puppet. You make something disappear, that's cool enough for me. You don't need to make an actual tiger disappear. No.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, when I was a teenager, I went to see Siegfried and Roy with my dad, and this was long before I was aware of a lot of animal protection issues, but I was not aware of the ethical problems with breeding white tigers. I wasn't aware of the exotic animal crisis in the United States. I wasn't aware, and this was like the late 90s. So I had no idea until I actually started working in the field, and I was like, oh my gosh, those guys were squarely in the middle of promoting a lot of the kind of Frankencat species that the roadside zoos like Doc Antle and Jeff Lowe and Joe Exotic and all these guys like breed to create on purpose to draw crowds.
Yep.
So
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they kind of made the whole white tiger kind of famous, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, when it it was just sort of like a fraud on the public, like the royal white Bengal tiger. Like it's just such a fiction, and
yeah.
The fake narrative that they pushed, that it's rare and
it's rare.
You need to come to see it there, and you'll think yourself.
Yeah. No, it's not supposed to exist.
No, please.
Yeah.
It's a joke. Did you? So we all remember the attack of Siegfried and Roy. And the narrative that was put in, in the news said that it was a protection thing, right?
Right.
It was supposed to be the tiger was heard a bang or it did something, and then it picked them, grabbed them and said, "Oh, I'm gonna protect you and save you."
Right.
We've spoken to some tiger experts that say that's an absolute complete bogus.
Well, also there was an expose recently. I mean, and I say recently, like within the past couple of years, that one of the big cat handlers who worked for them came forward and said they never even built relationships with those cats. So that cat didn't have a special relationship where he was being protective. Like they were completely hands off. Those cats were just for show. They weren't interested, at least according to this particular individual and what he reported witnessing and the dynamics that he alleged. So he kind of like blew the lid off of all the whitewashing that was done to make it seem like there was some sort of sweet story happening at the root of that whole tragic, awful situation. Tragic for the cat too, obviously.
Of course.
Yeah.
So
when we heard that, we're like, does everybody know about this? Like, why? One of the first instances where you're just like, wait a minute, they control the narrative completely. That was not what happened. Like, how did they do that? I thought the news was supposed to tell you what happened, not what they read, got from the producers or the managers of the show. It wasn't very long after that, the big cat world people, the ones that really know the animals, they were just like, no way, that wasn't a rescue, that wasn't him protecting, that was no way, that's not even close. That's what happened.
Well, guys, this has been super fun.
Yeah, it has.
I agree.
Absolutely.
It's
we
good
need to do
to
it
see
more often.
both. Yeah, for sure. I love
Definitely.
that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But no joke, I will send you information for my little venture up to I'm flying into Reno. And then I think Winnemucca is like a 2-hour drive or something like that. So
send me the info. Let's see if we have time. We can see if we can make it out there.
Okay.
And document that whole process. I think that would be interesting for people to see.
Okay.
What
and
goes
like Safe Haven, the sanctuary is like halfway in between. So like I'm probably gonna, you know, go there and visit because that's one of the sanctuaries I've never visited before. So
Safe Haven, yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
So,
yeah,
awesome.
That sounds good.
All right. Okay, well, take care. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too. Have a good one. Say hi to the family for me.
Will do. Likewise. Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.